Welcome to Ayurveda and Spirituality with your host, Alakananda Ma, a renowned Ayurvedic expert and a graduate of a top London medical school. She is the principal of Alundi Ayurveda Gurukula, a unique apprenticeship-style school in Boulder, Colorado. She is a spiritual mother, teacher, flower essence maker, and storyteller. Join us as we uncover the timeless principles of Ayurveda, discover practical tips for enhancing vitality, and explore the deeper dimensions of spirituality that intertwine with the ancient science of life.
Namaste, dear friends. So today's topic is Forever Fascism, Lessons from the Novel Swastika Night. So imagine life in 1937. Hitler is in power. War seems imminent, but the outcome is unknown. Imagine being a feminist in 1937, and you can see that women in Germany have lost the freedoms they had under the Weimar Republic. Now their main role is to give birth to Aryan babies. And you're wondering, is fascism going to take over the world? It's in this context, 12 years before the novel 1984 was published by George Orwell, the feminist author Katharine Burdekin wrote Swastika Night. I can't believe I hadn't heard about this book until just a few weeks ago, but I have a literary friend. My literary friend Francesco is one of the few friends I have who is as crazy about literature, especially English literature, as I am. And he and his father, Pino, gave me this book, Swastika Night by Katharine Burdekin, which I had never heard of before. Although the book richly deserves to be famous. In less than 200 pages, she creates an entire fascinating world. The book is set in a stagnant, male-dominated fascist empire 700 years into a dystopian future. Hitler has indeed won what she portrayed as the 20 Years' War. The 1,000-year Reich is tottering along. There's an uneasy, not a peace, but an uneasy lack of war between the two empires that control the world, the German and the Japanese empires. It's in this setting, set so far in the future, that Burdekin offers many insights into our world today. Women have undergone what she calls the reduction. They no longer live with men. They are mere soulless breeding stock kept in caged complexes. In this novel, women have lost control over their bodies and their offspring and no longer have the right to refuse a man's sexual advances. Nothing like our world today, huh? Or is it? Another part that's wonderful about this version of Swastika Night that I was gifted is that it has an amazing introduction by feminist professor Daphne Patai. So she has explains what I want to say probably better than I could say it. I'm going to quote from the introduction. Although Burdekin in her earlier works was already attuned to the problems of gender ideology, Hitler's rise to power apparently helped crystallize in her mind the dangers of conventional notions of masculinity. To a feminist following events in Nazi Germany and even before that in Mussolini's Italy, the logic of fascist gender ideology must have stood out. Nazi statements about women were clear enough. In 1932, a year before the Nazis destroyed all branches of the women's movement, the Reichskomitee of Working Women made an appeal to Germany's working class women, and that was published in Die Rote Fahne, the Red Flag, a German communist newspaper, and denounced Nazi brutality and called upon women to engage in anti-fascist action, saying, "The Nazis demand the death sentence for abortion. They want to turn you into compliant birth machines. You are to be servants and maids for men. Your human dignity is to be trampled underfoot." Winifred Holtby, in her 1934 book, Women in a Changing Civilization, warned her readers about the attack on reason implicit in the development of fascism in both Germany and England. She concluded, "The enemies of reason are inevitably the opponents of equal rights." And she goes on in the introduction to say that Hitler's view of the proper role of women was originally set forth in Mein Kampf. Their function is to reproduce the race. Hitler argued that the natural division of labor between men and women involved a harmonious complementarity between the greater world, male, and the smaller world, female. The program of our National Socialist Women's Movement contains only one point, and this is the child. Political life is unworthy of women. Hence, Nazi policy excluded them from it. So women have undergone, in this novel, women have undergone the reduction where they are now breeding stock. And yet we are far from a fascist empire 600 years into the future, but we see Dobbs. We see the end of Roe v. Wade. What a thing. It's just a short while ago that my niece, who's a dual British and Irish citizen, was hurrying home from college to cast a vote to legalize abortion in Ireland. And now we have lost that right in, of all places, the United States of America. On a state-by-state basis. We have it here in Colorado. Women can flee here. For how long? Something we never believed would happen has already happened. For how long? Pregnancy tests to leave state in case you're leaving state for an abortion. Having the government be able to track your menstrual cycle. It just goes on and on. We are seeing pronatal policies. We heard J.D. Vance talking contemptuously of childless cat ladies. Wow! I never thought of myself before as a childless cat lady, but sure, no kids and a cat. I guess I'm a proud childless cat lady. Pronatal policies and more trying to go back to relegating women to just the reproductive function. That's a huge part of what this book talks about is the position of women. And even the good men in this book exist in this male-dominated society and still believe that women are inherently inferior and don't really have souls. And even the women themselves at this point are authors of their own downfall and tend to believe it too. So that's one thing that I saw in the book. The next thing I saw is that it is set in a feudal world where there are knights who are immensely wealthy and own vast areas of land and have private planes. They don't have private jets because she didn't know about jet planes. They were still to come, but they have private planes. They have private yachts. They have rich places in the city and big houses in the country, and they eat well when everyone else is on rations. Everyone else, the vast majority of the factory workers and the farm workers are kept illiterate and uneducated. Really, only the knights are encouraged to be literate, and those technical workers who need literacy in order to read technical manuals. But there's really no great technological advances, very little advances in the last 600 years, because that requires education and people having the chance and the enthusiasm to innovate. Well, we've spoken before in other podcasts of the neo-feudal future that is envisioned for us by the billionaires. We are indeed all to be the serfs in a world that is owned by and ruled by billionaires. And we see the free ports and the charter cities, the places where normal laws don't happen, where people don't have the normal rights, where everything is owned by the corporation or the oligarch. So this feudal world that is envisioned in Swastika Night is very much the potential in our own future. She speaks of democracy like Christianity simply being too difficult to do. And democracy is indeed very difficult. It takes great dedication. Democracy is not a done deal. Our American Revolution is not a done deal. Our democracy here in America is not a done deal. The liberal democracies of the Western world are not a done deal. The democracies, the places where people, at least in aspiration, have equal rights, need to be defended moment by moment. We need to keep up that striving to create a more perfect union. We need to continue to defend the Constitution of the United States. We need to continue to stand up for, in other Western countries, parliamentary democracy, because these things are not a once forever set in place. We see how a neo-feudal world slowly creeps up upon us. So that's the second thing I noticed. The first thing I noticed about this book, that women have lost control over their bodies and their offspring and cannot refuse a man's sexual advances, and she was talking about now. She talked about a feudal world, and she's talking about now. Then I see that it is a post-Enlightenment world. To go back to that introduction, Winifred Holtby, in her 1934 book, Women in a Changing Civilization, warned her readers about and the attack on reason implicit in the development of fascism. I never thought to see an attack on reason. I'm the granddaughter of a rationalist, a dedicated rationalist. My grandfather was a rationalist, humanist, and a great ethical man. He believed the value of Judaism was ethics. It's shocking. I never thought my vision of the 21st century was never a post-Enlightenment world. It was a world when the Enlightenment, with its mottos of liberty, equality, and fraternity, would finally come into its own. I want to read you a poem that I wrote sometime after the Capitol riots. It's called In the 21st Century. The young 21st century is not turning out the way I thought it would. I foresaw a time of liberty, fraternity, equality, a flourishing of Aquarian ideals. I did not think that in the 21st century we would hear the hideous phrase illiberal democracy, or that far-right populism would rear its ugly head from Hungary to Brazil. Back in the 50s, that bruised yet hopeful time when my parents said I must be ready to stand up to the next would-be Hitler. I never thought that at the age of 65 I would march through Denver chanting, "Not my president!" I did not think that in the 21st century I would need to put up a sign saying, "Science is real." As a history student in the 60s, I criticized the French Enlightenment for enshrining reason in Notre Dame, separating us from spirit, distancing us from the intuitive feminine. Who thought I would live to see the day when reason herself would be dethroned? I did not think that in the 21st century people would be more afraid of a vaccine than of the deadly disease it came to prevent. Jenner, a man of the English Enlightenment, believer of progress and benevolence, devoted his life to eradicating smallpox. At medical school in the 70s, the finish line in sight, Jenner's dream about to become a reality. We never imagined in our euphoria crowds of gun-toting vaccine resistors. I did not think that in the 21st century the Capitol would be invaded by a mob of insurrectionists and there would be no collegial transfer of power. When I came to America in the 80s, I saw that the founding fathers, men of the American Enlightenment, proffered liberty and justice to all white male Protestants. Now, in the long arc of history, it's my turn to help form a more perfect union. I did not think that in the 21st century I would hear the ominous words, alternative facts. Before the 90s dawned, my rationalist grandfather died. He believed in an orderly, harmonious world born of the mind of a rational God. Despite the trenches, despite the Holocaust, he knew that reason must triumph in the end. I am glad he did not live to see the post-truth era. A reason, science, objective truth, blindfolded justice and liberty's torch to be consigned to the closet of forgotten things, anachronisms, once valuable, resting on a pile of vinyl records and old printing presses. As Ferlinghetti wrote, "Pity the nation whose leaders are liars, whose sages are silenced. Have we entered a new dark age where we deny the facts, ignore the voice of experts, even as ice caps melt and forests burn? Will there even be a 22nd century? That's the end of my poem, which ties right in with that narrative of the post-Enlightenment world. But worse still, not only is it a post-Enlightenment, post-reason world, the world that Burdekin portrays is a post-history world. All books, all monuments, even Mein Kampf itself, because it refers to a past in which Germany lost World War I. All books, all monuments, all cathedrals, everything has been systematically destroyed, creating a great gulf in which there is nothing but a fake religion in which a tall, blonde, super Aryan-looking Hitler exploded out of his father's head with no truck with any woman stuff. Where Hitler is God, where churches are shaped like swastikas. Where the creed, I'm trying to find that page with the creed, but I'm not finding it. A lot of our book is quite funny also. There's a certain amount of irony and things that are very funny, but basically believing in violence, believing in war. Here it is, the Hitlerian creed. And I believe in pride, in courage, in violence, in brutality, in bloodshed, and ruthlessness, and all other soldierly and heroic virtues. If this is satire, it is also an accurate representation of Nazi ideology, and only a slight exaggeration of the masculine gender identity considered normal in many parts of the world. So everything that isn't that has been destroyed. Christianity makes men effeminate. All that love, compassion, kindness stuff. My goodness. There are Christians still in this novel, but they are the outcasts and the untouchables. There are no Jews. Similar to The Man in a High Castle. There's a whole genre of novels in which Hitler won the war. A good example is The Man in the High Castle. If you didn't read the book, you might have seen the television series. I haven't seen the television series. I don't have a television. I read the book. In fact, I first got the book when I was a 20-something medical student, and I kind of felt like the book should be banned because we shouldn't imagine a world in which Hitler won, and I felt guilty for reading it, and it was so scary to think of all Jews being eradicated, except of course for the one like secret Jew in the book. But that novel takes place in a context where we knew who did win the war. So we've flipped things. We've created an alternate universe in which Hitler won, and things are way worse than they would be if he hadn't won. And then you can try to slip into the other alternate universe in which the Allies won, right? That's how that book goes. Well, it was different for Katharine Burdekin because she didn't know. She knew there was probably going to be a war, and she didn't know who would win. She went through a change similar to that which I have gone through. She was pacifist, as I was. I was raised pacifist. I've told you many times I was raised socialist pacifist. In 1938, she let go of her pacifism because she believed fascism must be fought. She believed fascism must be fought. And I have undergone a similar journey because I have come to believe in the duty to protect and that we must be willing to fight for the right. We not everything can be done by passive resistance. Not everything can be done by nonviolent means, though that's always better. I hope you aren't going to hate me for this, but she and I had gone through the same journey. But in all of the novels where Hitler won, the implication is the world is much worse than the world that is created when the Allies win. If Hitler won, then it is a worse world. And I read this and I thought about this. And I said to Sadananda, is our world better than if Hitler won? Because I'm watching Al Jazeera and I'm seeing the starvation and the genocide in Gaza, and I'm seeing the starvation in Sudan, and I'm seeing what's going on in Ukraine. I'm seeing all these horrible things, and I'm thinking, what sort of better world is it? What did our parents, or if you're younger, your grandparents, and if you're very young, your great-grandparents, what did they fight for? And Sadananda said they did fight against fascism, but they did believe in a white-dominated, male-dominated, capitalist world. They weren't really fighting for the world that some of us envision. So it's interesting. We haven't created the world we wanted to create, but we truly desired to create it. After the war, we created the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, perhaps the greatest document we've ever created, a culmination of all the world's religious and philosophical traditions. And we had a true intention to create a world of human rights, a world of liberty and justice for all, a world of international justice and international humanitarian law, a world where food was a right, a world where people could not be displaced, a world where civilians could not be killed, a world where doctors were protected, a world where hospitals were protected, a world where journalists were protected, a world where children were protected, a world where women were protected. We envisioned this. We wrote this. We are signatories to this. This is the vision we cherish. It's crucial that we don't betray it. It's crucial that we don't let it be eaten away little by little. I was talking about the post-history world. We haven't burned all the books, although we've been removing books from the shelves of libraries. We haven't destroyed all the monuments. We've been putting back Confederate monuments. We've been tweaking history. We've been nibbling at history because, as we know, history belongs to the victor. Just as reason is important, history is important. Historians are important. Their mission is important. Their mission to tell us where we come from, sheds light on where we are going. So we must be very careful that our museums, our libraries, our history is not twisted, is not distorted, is not nibbled away. Because our structure of humanitarian law is based on our history. As T.S. Eliot said, a people without a history is not redeemed from time. History is a succession of timeless moments. A people without a history is not redeemed from time. We need our history as we need reason, as we need science. So it's, even though our parents may have fought for not exactly what we want, although our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, depending who we are, may have fought for a white world, a capitalist world, yet they did fight against fascism. They did fight for democracy. They fought, many of them with arms, others with code, others in the factories, others in the fields. But they fought for democracy in their own way. And we must too, in our own way. As Katharine Burdekin said, fascism must be fought. It may not be the time to take to arms. It's undoubtedly the time to take to the streets. Fascism must be fought. Let's fight it together. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Ayurveda and Spirituality with Alakananda Ma. We hope today's exploration has ignited a spark of curiosity and insight within you. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave us a 5-star review and share it with a friend. For more enlightening discussions and practical wisdom on Ayurveda and spirituality, subscribe and join our Facebook group, Alundi Ayurveda. To allow us to continue sharing valuable content, consider donating to Alundi Ashram. The links will be in the show notes. Until next time, may you walk the path of Ayurveda with grace and embrace the light of spiritual wisdom in your journey.
Trayambakam yajamahe sugandhim pushtiva